The red spot on my kitchen floor wasn't part of the surprise we had planned for Diane. Neither was the shattered window or the Louisville slugger bat I was now gripping, so hard my knuckles turned white. But there it was, a Tuesday night in suburban Cleveland, and I'm standing over some unconscious dude in a ski mask while my 3 kids were huddled behind the kitchen island. "Dad, is he dead?" asked my eldest Emma, 17. "No, honey, just taking a nap on our Costco welcome mat." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Tyler, call 911. Tyler, my 15-year-old son, was already dialing. Jake, only 10, was clutching his Nintendo Switch like it was a life preserver in the middle of Lake Erie. Let me back up. My name's Mike Callahan. Until 2 days ago, I was your average 53-year-old middle management guy working at Progressive Insurance. Married for 19 years to Diane, who's a pharmaceutical sales rep. We got the Colonial in Shaker Heights, the golden retriever named Doug, and a monthly Costco bill that could fund a small country. Diane had been on a business trip to Chicago, her 3rd this month, and we decided to fly out and surprise her for her birthday weekend. The kids had been planning it for weeks. Homemade cards, a cake from that fancy bakery near Trader Joe's. The works. I found her hotel on her company's travel portal. I still had her password from that time I had to print her boarding pass while she was stuck in traffic on I-271. Compliance are 0 CKs. Not exactly Fort Knox security there. So here we were, checking into the Marriott downtown, feeling like the Dan Brady bunch about to pull off the surprise of the century. The lady at the front desk looked at me funny when I asked for a key to my wife's room. "Sir, Mrs. Callahan checked out yesterday morning." I laughed. "No, that can't be right. She's here until Sunday. Conference doesn't end till Saturday." The receptionist tapped away at her keyboard. "According to our records, she only booked until Wednesday. She checked out on schedule." The kids were looking at me now. Emma, always a practical one, pulled out her phone. "I'll just call Mom." "Great idea," I said, trying to sound normal while my brain was doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics. Diane picked up on the second ring. "Hey, sweetie, everything okay?" Emma put on speaker. "Yeah, where are you right now?" "At the conference. Honey, just finished the presentation. Is everything all right?" I could hear restaurant noise in the background. Clinking glasses. Laughter. "Which conference room are you in?" I asked, jumping in. "We're in the lobby." Dead silence. Then, "Mike, what are you talking about?" "Surprise!" yelled Jake, still believing this was all going according to plan. Another silence. "You're here?" "In Chicago." "Yep. Lobby of the Marriott, where the receptionist says you checked out yesterday." I watched my kids' faces as they processed what was happening. Tyler's eyes narrowed. Emma's hand went to her mouth. There was a change of... I'm at a different hotel now. The company switched us last minute. "Where are you exactly?" "I'll come meet you." I ended up taking the kids to Giordano's for deep dish while Diane wrapped up her meeting. She met us an hour later, flustered, over-explaining about room booking issues and a venue change. The kids seemed to buy it. I didn't. That night, in our new hotel room, with the kids asleep in the adjoining room, I confronted her. She denied everything, got angry at me for ruining her important work trip with a half-baked surprise. Classic Diane move, flipping the script. "Are you kidding me right now, Mike?" she hissed, keeping her voice low enough not to wake the kids. Her eyes flashed with that familiar cold anger I'd seen more frequently in recent years. "You show up unannounced with 3 children to a professional conference, and I'm the one with explaining to do?" She paced our hotel room like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea how this looks to my colleagues? I had important meetings scheduled. Networking dinners. Now I look like some helicopter mom who can't leave her family for 5 minutes. The receptionist said you checked out yesterday." I said quietly, "Because the company switched hotels. I told you that. Why would I lie about something so stupid?" She ran her hands through her hair. "God, Mike, this controlling behavior of yours is exactly why I needed this trip alone. You never trust me. You never give me space. You're suffocating me with your suburban paranoia." That stung. She knew how to hit where it hurt. My deepest insecurity that I become exactly what my 20-year-old self had feared. Boring, predictable, pathetically domestic. "I just wanted to surprise you for your birthday," I said, deflated. "Well, congratulations." "I'm surprised. Hope you're happy." She grabbed her toiletry bag and locked herself in the bathroom. We've been down this road before. Last summer, I came home early from a golf tournament, threw my back out on the third hole, and found her frantically tidying up the living room, wearing her good perfume on a Tuesday afternoon. There were 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher, still running. When I asked about it, she claimed she'd had lunch with her sister Leslie. I called Leslie the next day to thank her for keeping Diane company. She had no idea what I was talking about. Diane later said I must have misunderstood. It was her colleague Lisa, not Leslie. I let it slide, even though something didn't add up. Our marriage had been on autopilot for years. We functioned like well-programmed robots, dividing household chores, coordinating kid schedules, having obligatory anniversary dinners at that Italian place where they know us by name. But the intimacy? That had faded faster than my hairline. When was the last time we'd really talked? Really connected? I couldn't remember. I'd buried myself in fantasy football leagues and weekend projects, silently wondering if this low-grade disappointment was just what happens after 2 decades of marriage. But something wasn't right. The conference badge she wore had different dates than what she'd told me. And when she was in the shower, I checked her phone. Several calls from someone saved as Phil Work. Phil, the new regional manager she'd mentioned a few times. Too many times. This wasn't the first time I'd felt that pit in my stomach about Diane. 3 years ago, I found a hotel key card in her suitcase from a Hyatt in Boston when she was supposed to be at a Marriott in Philadelphia. When I asked about it, she had some elaborate story about a conference venue change and shuttling between hotels. I wanted to believe her so badly that I did. Then last Christmas, Emma mentioned something about Mom's friend with a cool car who'd drop her off at the mall once when I was on that fishing trip with my buddies. When I casually asked Diane about it, she got defensive, claimed it was just a co-worker giving her a ride when her car was in the shop. But our Nissan hadn't been serviced in months. And just this past Valentine's Day, I spotted a text notification on her phone while she was cooking dinner. Something about missing last night. She told me she was working late at the office, claimed there was a West Coast client call that ran until 10 p.m. When I picked up her dry cleaning the next day, there was a cocktail dress with a new receipt. She hadn't mentioned any work events. Each time, I talked myself out of my suspicions. We had built this life together. The house, the kids, the stupid golden retriever who ate my favorite Nikes. It was easier to believe I was paranoid than to admit our marriage might be a lie. So I buried those doubts deep, like old utility bills you know you should file, but instead stuff in a drawer. We flew back Sunday. The surprise thoroughly ruined. Diane had to stay for one more day of meetings. Sure, this time, though, the drawer wouldn't close. 2 days later, I was at home with the kids when I got a bizarre call from an unknown number. "Is this Michael Callahan?" a gruff voice asked. "Speaking. Your wife is playing a dangerous game. Look in the storage box in your attic labeled Christmas. You'll find something interesting." Click. I hadn't decorated for Christmas since my artificial tree from Target broke 3 years ago, but I remember that box. It was in the far corner of our attic, behind the treadmill Diane used twice before it became an expensive clothes hanger. After the kids were in bed, I went up there and found it. Inside, beneath some sad-looking tinsel and burned-out light strings, was a false bottom. Underneath, a handgun, about $20,000 in cash, and a passport for Diane with a different last name. I sat there among the Christmas crap, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut by Santa himself. Who the hell was my wife? That night, I couldn't sleep. I put the box back exactly as I found it and lay awake staring at our popcorn ceiling, wondering if the man snoring softly beside me was the same one who'd been coaching Tyler's baseball team and helping Emma with her calculus homework. The next morning, Diane left for work, as usual, kissing us all goodbye, packing her sensible Nissan Pathfinder with her sample cases. I called in sick, dropped the kids at school, and then did something I never thought I'd do. I followed my wife. She didn't go to her office in University Circle. Instead, she drove to a coffee shop in Tremont, where she met a tall, dark-haired man. They talked intensely for about 20 minutes, then left in separate cars. I followed the man. He led me to a nondescript warehouse near the flats. I parked across the street at a Wendy's, nursing a Frosty while I watched him enter a code on a keypad. What the hell was my pharmaceutical rep wife mixed up in? I was about to leave when I spotted another familiar face entering the same building, Dr. Ramirez, Jake's pediatrician. What in the actual hell? That night, I did some digging. Diane's company laptop was password protected, but I knew this one too. Jake M. Tye 2005. Our kids' names and the year we bought our house. Inside, I found emails about shipments and inventory that didn't sound like legitimate pharmaceuticals. I was piecing it together when I heard a noise downstairs. The sound of breaking glass. Hence, something red on my kitchen floor, and the unconscious intruder. The police came and took the guy away. Detective Martinez stayed behind to take our statement. Any idea why someone would break into your home, Mr. Callahan? I thought about the gun, the cash, the fake passport. No clue. Maybe he thought nobody was home. Martinez looked skeptical. Most burglars case a place first. They don't break in when there are cars in the driveway and lights on. After the police left, I got a text from the same unknown number. You've opened Pandora's box. They'll come for the kids next. Meet me at Cleveland Museum of Art tomorrow. 2 p.m. North entrance. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I called my sister in Pittsburgh. Hey, Jen, weird favor. Can the kids come stay with you for a bit? Diane and I are having some issues. Of course, she said. Everything okay? Just need some space to figure things out. I'll drive them down tonight. After dropping the kids at Jen's, I drove back to Cleveland, my mind racing. At the museum, I found myself standing in front of Monet, pretending to appreciate water lilies while scanning for anyone who might be my mysterious caller. Despite everything, I loved Diane. I loved her ambition, her laugh that could fill a room, even her strange passion for esotericism that had started about 5 years ago. Crystals on the windowsills, sage bundles in the kitchen drawers, books about chakras and energy healing stacked on her nightstand. I teased her about it, called it her woo-woo phase, but supported her journey to spiritual enlightenment, as she called it. What I didn't support was the money. Our joint account statements showed withdrawals, $500 here, $700 there, all made out to something called celestial pathways. When I questioned the expenses, she said they were for spiritual guidance sessions with a woman named Serena, who ran a metaphysical shop in a renovated Victorian house on the east side. It's cheaper than therapy, she'd said, and more effective. I later discovered she wasn't just getting readings. She was paying the Serena woman to cast spells, actual curses. I found receipt in her car for a binding ritual that cost $1,200. When confronted, she admitted she'd asked Serena to cast a spell on her regional director who'd pass her over for a promotion. And it worked, Mike. 3 weeks later, he got transferred to Omaha. I should have seen the red flags. The late-night meditation circles that left her smelling like expensive cologne. The secret phone calls to discuss her spiritual progress. The weekends away at retreats where phones weren't allowed. During her arraignment, when the judge asked if she had anything to say, Diane looked directly at me in the gallery. It was during those classes that I met Marcus, she said flatly. Serena introduced us. He understood the power I was seeking. You never did. Marcus Whitman, the leader of the drug ring, the father of my youngest son, the man who had apparently been using a New Age spiritual group as a front for recruiting distributors for his pharmaceutical operation. The Caravaggio is better, said a voice beside me. I turned to find an older man with silver hair and a face that had seen things. I'm Phil, the real Phil, not the one your wife invented. He explained that he was FBI. They'd been investigating a prescription drug ring operating out of several cities, including Cleveland. Diane wasn't just involved. She was a key player. We believe she joined their operation about 11 years ago, he said. 11 years. Right around when Jake was born. There's more, Phil said, leading me to a bench in a quieter part of the museum. We have reason to believe your youngest son's biological father is Marcus Whitman, the organization's leader. The room started spinning. Jake, with his darker complexion that neither Diane nor I could explain, his brown eyes when ours were both blue. The genetic throwback. Our doctor had casually explained away. We need your help, Mike, Phil continued. We're close to bringing down the whole operation, but we need someone on the inside of Diane's life. You want me to spy on my wife? The mother of my children? I was angry now. How do I know you're even FBI? He showed me credentials that looked real enough, plus photos of Diane meeting with various people, including the man from the coffee shop and, most shockingly, Dr. Ramirez. They've been using pediatric practices to distribute. Who questions a doctor writing prescriptions? It was elegant in its evil simplicity. I agreed to help. What choice did I have? My family was in danger, and the woman I'd built a life with was a stranger. For the next week, I played the role of oblivious husband while secretly documenting Diane's movements, copying files, planning FBI listening devices. The raid happened on a Tuesday. I made sure to be at work, surrounded by witnesses. They took Diane right from the parking lot of her office, which turned out to be just a front. That night, agents came to the house to formally notify me. I'm so sorry, Mr. Callahan. Your wife has been arrested on charges of drug trafficking, fraud, and conspiracy. I played shocked husband well. It wasn't hard. I was still in shock. The story blew up locally. Suburban Mom's Double Life was a headline on Cleveland.com. My phone blew up with calls from friends, neighbors, Diane's actual co-workers who had no idea what she'd been up to. The worst was telling the kids. Emma and Tyler were old enough to understand most of it. Jake just kept asking when Mom was coming home. Emma's reaction surprised me most. Instead of shock, she had this look of grim confirmation. I knew something was off with Mom, she finally admitted, hugging her knees to her chest on our living room sofa. Remember that time she missed my dance recital junior year because of food poisoning? I saw her that same night at Beechwood Mall with some guy. She didn't see me. I was with Madison and her mom. I told myself it was work-related. Tyler punched a wall, leaving a fist-sized hole in our hallway drywall. Is that why she always took those weekend trainings? Is that why she forgot my championship game? His voice cracked, and I realized my stoic son had been noticing things too. The family therapist said this was normal. Kids pick up on tensions, inconsistencies, the subtle fracture lines in a marriage. They just don't have the vocabulary or emotional toolkit to process it, so they internalize it, blame themselves. Our house became a minefield of emotional outbursts. Emma stopped eating, losing 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Tyler got suspended for fighting at school. Jake wet the bed for the first time since kindergarten. And me? I kept finding new moments to second guess. That business trip to San Diego 5 years ago, when she came back with no tan. The girls' weekends that seemed to multiply each year. The mysterious cash withdrawals from our joint account that she explained away as keeping cash on hand for emergencies. DNA tests confirmed what I already knew in my gut. Jake wasn't biologically mine. Marcus Whitman, currently in federal custody, was his father. The timeline matched perfectly. 11 years ago, when Diane claimed she had to attend that pharmaceutical conference in Miami, while I stayed home with strep throat-stricken Emma and Tyler. She came back tanned, relaxed, and 2 months later announced she was pregnant. I was ecstatic. Never once questioned the timing. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm sitting in my lawyer's office, signing divorce papers, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life that was apparently built on quicksand from the start. Emma's struggling but seeing a therapist. Tyler's thrown himself into baseball. And Jake. Sweet Jake doesn't fully understand why his world imploded, but he knows I'm still his dad, biology be damned. Yesterday, as I was picking up a rotisserie chicken at Walmart, bachelor life am I right, I ran into Diane's sister Leslie. I never liked her, Leslie said, examining a cantaloupe like it held the secret to the universe. Always thought she was hiding something. Nobody is that perfect. I just nodded, thinking how Diane and I used to laugh at Leslie's dramatic proclamations during our Sunday dinners. You'll come out stronger, she added, patting my arm. And hey, when you're ready to date again, my friend Tricia is single, works in legitimate pharmaceuticals. She winked. I managed a laugh. Maybe someday. As I pushed my cart away, I realized something. The surprise we planned for Diane's birthday had worked after all, just not in the way we expected. We surprised ourselves by uncovering the truth. Now I'm left picking up the pieces, raising 3 kids who are half-siblings. Turns out Emma is actually mine, confirmed by those same DNA tests, navigating a high-profile divorce, and trying to explain to my elderly mother why her daughter-in-law is on the news in an orange jumpsuit instead of hosting Christmas like she promised. Life comes at you fast, as those nationwide commercials keep reminding me. One day you're arguing about whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. The next you're wondering if that family trip to Niagara Falls was actually a drug run. But we're surviving, one day at a time, as they say at the support group I now attend Tuesday nights at the Methodist Church near Target. Last week, Jake crawled into my bed during a thunderstorm, something he hasn't done since he was 6. "Dad," he whispered, "are you still my real dad even though that other guy helped make me?" I pulled him close. "Buddy, I've been there for every skin knee, every baseball game, every nightmare since the day you were born. DNA doesn't make a dad. Showing up does. And I'm never going to stop showing up for you." He seemed satisfied with that answer and fell asleep on my arm, which went numb around 3 a.m. I didn't move, though. Some discomfort is worth it. As for Diane, the trial starts next month. The prosecutors say she's looking at 15 to 20 years. She's been writing letters to the kids, which I let them read if they want to. Emma tears hers up. Tyler reads his but doesn't write back. Jake keeps his in a shoebox under his bed. 3 weeks before the trial began, I was making lasagna, one of the few dishes in my limited cooking repertoire that all 3 kids would actually eat, when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Jake called out, racing from the living room where he'd been playing some shooting game with Tyler. I heard the door open, then silence. Then, "Dad, someone's here for you." Something in Jake's voice made me wipe my hands immediately and hurry to the door. Standing on our front porch was a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, shoulder-length brown hair, wearing jeans and a Cleveland State University sweatshirt. "Can I help you?" I asked, instinctively putting my arm around Jake's shoulders. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Melissa Whitman." She shifted nervously. "Marcus's sister." I turned to Jake. "Go help your brother set the table, Bud." Jake looked between us, curious, but did as told. As soon as he was out of earshot, I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "What are you doing at my house?" My voice was low, controlled, but I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said quickly, holding up her hands. I just wanted to meet you, to explain some things. About my brother, about Diane." "I think the FBI has explained plenty," I said coldly. "Please, 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I'm not like Marcus. I've been trying to get him into rehab for years. He's sick. What he did was wrong. So wrong. But there's more to the story than you know." I studied her face. She had the same eyes as Jake, those deep brown eyes that had always been a mystery to me and Diane. My Jake had his biological aunt's eyes. 10 minutes, I said finally, but not here, not where my kids might overhear. We met at a Starbucks near the high school. I ordered black coffee. She got some complicated frozen thing with whipped cream. "I was clean when Marcus wasn't," she began, stirring her drink. 15 years sober next month. "Congratulations," I said stiffly. "Thanks. It's work, daily work." She took a deep breath. "I need to tell you about the night Marcus met Diane. It wasn't at some spiritual center. It was at rehab." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "Briarwood Recovery Center, 2013. Marcus was there after his second overdose. Diane was there for, I think it was pills, anxiety medication, maybe?" She never went into details with me. My mind raced back. Spring 2013. Diane had gone to visit her college roommate in Arizona for 3 weeks. Came back looking healthy, refreshed. Said she'd taken up hiking. That's not possible. Diane doesn't. She's never had a drug problem. Melissa smiled sadly. "Everyone at Briarwood has the perfect cover story, Mr. Callahan. No one tells their family they're in rehab if they can help it." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos, and handed it to me. There was Diane, looking younger, sitting in what appeared to be a group therapy circle. Marcus sat 2 chairs away. They bonded there, both from good families, both hiding massive secrets. They left after 30 days, supposedly recovered. Marcus stayed clean for about 6 months before relapsing. I think Diane managed longer. I pushed the phone back toward her. "So what?" "They had an affair. He's Jake's father. I know all this." It wasn't just an affair, Melissa said quietly. Marcus had a business opportunity. Diane had connections in pharmaceutical sales. At first, I think she just looked the other way when he asked for samples. Then it escalated. Why are you telling me this? I demanded. Because Marcus is trying to make a deal. He's going to say Diane was the mastermind. That she recruited him, not the other way around. That she used her position to set everything up. I laughed bitterly. And you expect me to what? Defend my criminal ex-wife's honor. I expect you to want the truth, she said simply. For your son's sake. For all your children. She slid a USB drive across the table. These are Marcus's rehab journals. Email exchanges between them from the beginning. Evidence that he manipulated her relapse. Pushed her back into using. So he could control her. Why would you betray your own brother like this? Her eyes, Jake's eyes, filled with tears. Because I've watched him destroy enough lives. And that little boy deserves to know his mother wasn't always a monster. She became one. There's a difference. I pocketed the USB drive without committing to anything. As I stood to leave, Melissa grabbed my wrist. There's one more thing. The Celestial Pathways place? The spiritual center? It's real. Diane really did go there after she'd gotten clean again. She was desperately trying to stay straight, find some meaning. Marcus infiltrated it, planted Serena there to pull Diane back in. Her pursuit of spirituality was real. Her attempt to get better was real. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, I plugged the drive into my laptop. What I found shook me to my core. Years of calculated manipulation. Marcus deliberately targeting my wife after discovering her position at the pharmaceutical company. Exploiting her insecurities, her loneliness, her previous addiction issues. There was an email where he explicitly laid out his strategy to partner. She's perfect. Respectable cover, access to product, and just damage enough to be controllable. The final document was a voice memo from Diane to herself, dated just 2 weeks before her arrest. I can't do this anymore. The meditation isn't working. The crystals aren't working. Nothing is working. Marcus says if I try to leave, he'll tell Mike everything. About rehab. About Jake. About the things I've done. I can't lose my family. But I'm losing myself. Maybe coming clean is the only way out now. God help me. God help my children. She never got the chance to come clean on her own terms. I got her instead, in handcuffs, escorted by federal agents. I sat in my dark home office until 3 a.m., turning this new information over my mind. Had I missed signs that Diane was struggling with addiction? Had I been so wrapped up in my fantasy football leagues and home improvement projects that I'd missed my wife's desperate attempts to stay afloat? The next morning, I called Phil at the FBI. I need to talk to Diane, I said without preamble. In person, without recording devices. That's not how this works, Mike. Make it work, I insisted, or I take what I know to her defense attorney. 2 days later, I sat across from my wife in a sterile visitation room. She looked smaller somehow, her confident posture diminished by the orange jumpsuit and the circles under her eyes. Mike, she said, genuine surprise in her voice. Why are you here? I know about Briarwood. I said simply, I know about the rehab, about how you met Marcus. Her face crumpled. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I saw a genuine emotion break through a carefully constructed facade. How did you find out? His sister came to see me. Melissa. Diane's eyes widened. Melissa? She always hated me. Said I was dragging Marcus down. She laughed bitterly. She gave me proof that he targeted you, manipulated you back into addiction, used celestial pathways to control you. Diane looked away. Does it matter now? I still did what I did. It matters to me, I said, surprised to find I meant it. It matters to understanding how we ended up here. For the next hour, Diane talked, really talked, about the anxiety that had plagued her since college, the way she'd started self-medicating with her mother's Valium, how it had escalated until she couldn't function without pills, how she'd hidden it from everyone, including me, crafting elaborate excuses for her behavior. I was clean for almost 10 years before I met Marcus again, she said. That spiritual center. It was actually helping. I was trying, Mike. I really was trying to be better. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me. About any of it? The addiction, the rehab, the struggle? We were married. I would have helped you. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Would you? The perfect Mike Callahan? Mr. Reliable who never fails at anything? How could I tell you I was broken? You married a strong, confident woman. I couldn't bear for you to see me as weak. I would have loved you anyway, I said, my voice cracking. I would have loved the real you, Diane. Even the broken parts. Maybe especially those. Tears streamed down her face. I'll never know now, will I? It's too late for us. It is, I agreed, but it's not too late for the truth. It's not too late for our kids to understand that you're more than your worst decisions. When I left, I felt lighter somehow. Not healed. That would take years, if ever, but like I finally had a complete picture. The woman I'd married wasn't a complete lie. She was a damaged person who'd made terrible choices, who'd been exploited and manipulated, but who had also betrayed us in unforgivable ways. I decided to tell the kids gradually, age-appropriately, about addiction and mental health, about how good people can make catastrophic choices, not to excuse what Diane did, but to help them understand the complexities of human weakness. In the end, with evidence from Melissa, Diane's sentence was reduced to 10 years with possibility of parole after 7. Marcus got 25 to life. The pediatrician, Dr. Ramirez, turned state's evidence and got 5 years. 1 year to the day after Diane's sentencing, I stood in our driveway, watching a moving truck pull away. The sold sign on our front lawn flapped in the October breeze. Ready? Asked Emma, jingling the keys to her used Honda Civic. She'd be driving separately to our new house 30 minutes away. A fresh start in a neighborhood where people didn't whisper when we walked into a grocery store. Tyler was loading the last of his baseball gear into my SUV. Jake was already buckling the back seat. Doug, the golden retriever, panting happily beside him. I kind of can't believe we're really leaving, Tyler said, closing the trunk. This is the only home I've ever known. Home isn't a building, Ty, I said, squeezing his shoulder. It's wherever we're together. As we pulled away, I glanced in my rearview mirror at the colonial house with its familiar shutters and the maple tree where we'd hung a tire swing when Emma was 5. I'd loved that house. But now it felt like a museum of lies, each room a diorama of our fake, perfect life. Our new place was smaller, a ranch-style house with a decent backyard for Doug and a finished basement where the kids could hang out with friends. Different school district, different neighbors, a chance to introduce ourselves as who we really were, not who we'd been pretending to be. That night, after pizza on moving boxes because we couldn't find the kitchen table legs, Emma brought out a cake. What's this for? I asked. 1 year, she said simply. We survived 1 year. Tyler dimmed the lights while Jake stuck a single candle in the center. Make a wish, Dad, Jake said. I looked at my 3 children, Emma with her newfound confidence from therapy, Tyler showing genuine emotion for the first time in months, and Jake, sweet Jake, who still kept his mom's letters but was also thriving with his new baseball team and his first real friend in the neighborhood. What do you wish for when your life has been shattered and you're trying to build something new from the broken pieces? I closed my eyes and blew out the candle. What did you wish for? Jake asked eagerly. Can't tell or it won't come true. I winked, but inside I knew I wished for healing. Not forgetting, never that, but healing for all of us. 6 months into our new life, I was unpacking a box I'd somehow missed in the garage. Old photo albums tucked away for someday when I'm ready. I found myself smiling at pictures of Diane and me in our early days. Her laugh, caught mid-motion as she splashed me at her parents' lake house. The way she looked at me on our wedding day, like I was everything she'd ever wanted. Was it all a lie? The complexity of it still haunted me. Parts of us had been real. The love had been real, at least in the beginning. Her addiction, her secrets, her other life, those were real too. People contain multitudes, as my therapist kept reminding me. The doorbell rang, interrupting my nostalgic spiral. When I opened it, I found myself face to face with a woman I vaguely recognized but couldn't quite place. Hi, Mike, she said. I'm Lisa, Diane's actual colleague. We met at your Christmas party 3 years ago. It clicked. Right, Lisa. What can I do for you? She thrust a small box into my hands. Diane asked me to give you this. I've been holding on to it for months, trying to work up the courage to come by. Inside was a thumb drive and a handwritten note. After Lisa left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at it for a long time before finally reading. Asterisk, Mike. If you're reading this, then things have fallen apart exactly as I feared they would. I'm probably in prison. You probably hate me. You have every right to. What I did was unforgivable. The drugs, the lies, the betrayal, all of it. But there's one thing I need you to know. Jake is your son. Biologically, genetically, completely yours. The DNA test was faked. Marcus made me tell that lie to hurt you, to make sure you'd never forgive me. The proof is on this drive, the real test results I had done secretly. I couldn't bear the thought of Jake growing up believing he wasn't yours. That was the one line I couldn't cross. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to tell our son the truth. Diane asterisk. My hands were shaking as I plugged in the drive. There was a DNA test from a different lab than the one the FBI had used. 99.99% probability that Jake was my biological child. I called Phil immediately. The DNA test was falsified. The FBI's test. That's not possible, he said. Our lab. Marcus had someone on the inside. I interrupted. Has to be. I need you to run the test again. Different lab. Different samples. Everything different. 3 weeks later, the results confirmed what Diane's secret test had shown. Jake was mine. My son. When I told him, he burst into tears. Not of sadness, but relief. I knew it, he kept saying. I knew I was really yours. That night, I wrote my first letter to Diane in prison. Just 3 lines. I told Jake the truth. He's relieved. So am I, Mike. Her reply came 2 weeks later. It was the one truth I had left to give. Thank you for giving it to him. Life settled into a different rhythm. Emma started community college, still living at home to save money. Tyler made varsity baseball as a sophomore. Jake joined the science club and discovered a passion for robotics. And me, I started dating. Awkwardly at first. God, the dating apps made me feel ancient. But eventually I met Carol, a divorced high school principal with grown children of her own. We took things slowly, both carrying our own relationship baggage. The first time she came over for dinner to meet the kids was a disaster of epic proportions. Emma was cold and distant. Tyler asked inappropriately personal questions. Jake accidentally on purpose spilled spaghetti sauce on Carol's white blouse. Well, that was a categorical failure, I said after driving her home. They're protecting you, she said simply. Testing me. It's normal. Carol's patience eventually won them over. She never tried to replace Diane or insert herself as a mother figure. She was just Carol, kind, straightforward, with a wicked sense of humor that even Emma eventually couldn't resist. 2 years into our relationship, as we walked Doug around the neighborhood one evening, she asked a question I'd been dreading. Have you ever visited Diane in prison? I stopped walking. No. Letters sometimes, for Jake's sake, but no visits. Why not? Because I'm afraid, I admitted, the truth finally spilling out. Afraid that if I see her, I'll forgive her. And I can't forgive her. Not after everything. Carol squeezed my hand. Forgiveness isn't for her, Mike. It's for you. The following month, I found myself sitting across from Diane again. 5 years had changed her. The sharp edges had softened. Prison had bleached the color from her skin. But there was a clarity in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. You look good, she said. Healthy. I am. The kids are too. Jake made the honor roll. I know. I have a certificate on my wall. We talked about neutral topics, the children, her prison GED program, my new job. As our time wound down, she finally asked a question hovering between us. Why did you come, Mike? After all this time? I considered lying, saying something about closure, or Jake wanted me to check on her. But we'd had enough lies. I came because I needed to know if I still hated you. She nodded, accepting this. And do you? No. I realized, surprised by my own answer. I don't hate you anymore. I don't know what I feel, but it's not hate. Tears filled her eyes. That's more than I deserve. As I stood to leave, she said one more thing. Are you happy, Mike? Really happy. The question caught me off guard with its selflessness. The old Diane would have manipulated, would have tried to make me feel guilty about moving on. I'm getting there, I answered honestly, day by day. Good, she said simply. That's all I needed to know. 6 months later, Carol and I got engaged. Nothing fancy. A quiet proposal on her back deck while watching a meteor shower. The kids' reactions were mixed but generally positive. Emma insisted on helping plan the small ceremony. Tyler wanted to know if Carol's lakefront cottage meant he could finally get the boat he'd been lobbying for. Jake asked if Carol would be changing her last name to Callahan. Actually, I told him, we're thinking of both changing our names. A fresh start. We chose Marshall, Carol's mother's maiden name. Mike and Carol Marshall. It had a nice ring to it. The week before the wedding, Emma came to me with something she'd been keeping secret. I've been writing to Mom, she confessed, for about a year now. I know, I said gently. Jake mentioned it accidentally. Are you mad? Why would I be mad? She's your mother. Emma twisted her hands nervously. I invited her to send something for the wedding, like a note or whatever. Is that okay? What could I say? Of course it's okay. Diane's contribution arrived 2 days before the ceremony. A small package containing a vintage handkerchief embroidered with wildflowers. This was my grandmother's. Something old, something borrowed. May this marriage be built on honesty and kindness. All my love to Emma, Tyler, and Jake. Congratulations, Mike and Carol. Diane. Carol carried it in her pocket during the ceremony. A small gesture of peace that meant everything. At the reception, just 30 people in Carol's backyard, Jake pulled me aside. At 13, he was starting to look more like me than ever, especially around the eyes. Dad, I have a question. Shoot, buddy. When Mom gets out, what happens then? Leave it to Jake to look 7 moves ahead. Diane would be eligible for parole in 2 years. I thought about it, of course, endlessly. She'll be part of your life as much as she wants to be and as much as you want her to be, I said carefully. But where will she live? How will she get a job with a record? What if... I put my hands on his shoulders. We'll figure it out when the time comes. Your mom is smart and resourceful, and she loves you 3 more than anything in the world. That much I know for sure. Even after everything. I still miss her sometimes, he admitted in a small voice. Me too, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. Not the Diane who had lied and betrayed us, but the Diane who had nursed Emma through pneumonia, who knew just how to pitch to Tyler, so he could practice his swing, who laughed at my terrible jokes and brought me coffee in bed every Sunday morning for 19 years. People contain multitudes. The woman who broke my heart and the woman I had loved were the same person. The mother who had endangered her children, and the mother who had protected them at great personal cost were the same person. The wife who had betrayed me and the wife who had once loved me completely were the same person. As Carol and I swayed to our first dance as husband and wife, I caught Emma wiping away tears. Tyler had his arm around Jake's shoulders. Doug was snoring under the dessert table, gray now around his muzzle. This was my family now. Imperfect, complicated, real. We had survived the worst betrayal imaginable. We had rebuilt from the rubble. We had learned that love isn't always enough, but it's always worth fighting for. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. That healing comes in unexpected ways. What would you do if you were in this man's shoes? Argue in the comments.